Okay, let's get this show on the road then. So good morning and good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our third Fintech Friday session. My name is Karila Kilian, and I'm pleased to be moderating the event. Fintech Fridays are monthly thought leadership meetups between fintechs, financial service providers, big techs, unicorns, and investors working to drive the female economy and unlock its full potential. We have a very exciting program lined up for today, and we hope you'll find it very valuable and will engage with our speakers, which we highly encourage you to do. A few very quick housekeeping notes before we start. Keep your microphones on mute and your videos off, unless you're the speaker, please. Use the chat function to engage and ask your questions to the panelists. Please rename yourselves to include your first name and institution to make the networking easier. So with us today, we have a panel of experts from fintechs all over the world to discuss the importance of taking a gender intelligent approach. Our research last year found that while fintechs are well placed to tap into the women's market, they are largely overlooking it. Fintechs have to move beyond building gender neutral products or simply changing the interface, design and color to create what we call a female friendly variant of the same service if they really want to serve the women's market in a meaningful way. So building a gender intelligent customer value proposition requires a data-driven, tailored approach that focuses on overcoming women's obstacles and solving for their unique life moments. So this starts with developing a deeper understanding of the market, then tailoring the business model to make sure it meets the needs and working with actors across the ecosystem to make sure that they are all fully aligned. It is therefore key to understanding women's realities, needs, and preferences. These are things such as understanding that women self-report lower levels of financial literacy, they have less business experience, they have smaller networks, etc. As such, Alliance members find that in addition to finance, women need access to information, knowledge, education, networks, and even recognition. In our previous Fintech Fridays, we heard from fintechs that understood this reality and saw gender as an opportunity rather than a limitation. And they confirmed that women are financially more disciplined than men. So I now want to turn to my panel of industry experts as we do a deep dive on this topic and hear their best practices and insights on capturing and analyzing sex disaggregated data and overcoming roadblocks along the way. So first, I'd like to do a quick round of introductions, and I will ask you to, my speakers, to first please introduce themselves very quickly in 1 minute and the companies they represent, and then we will get the conversation rolling. Buhle, we start with you.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here. So my name is Buhle Goslar. I'm the Africa CEO at Jumo. Jumo is a technology company that is working with banks and mobile payment operators across Africa and Asia to serve both entrepreneurs and individuals with financial services products. I would say in a nutshell, what we're most proud of is the way in which we have used advanced predictive analytics and also super low cost cloud-based scalable infrastructure to reach customers who would traditionally not access financial services. And we've reached over 18 million customers across 7 markets with over $3 billion dispersed. And a key part of how we do what we do is really partnering with like-minded partners. So Pan-African banks like EcoBank and ABSA, and also some of the major mobile payment operators like MTN, Airtel, and EasyPaysa. So really looking forward to today's conversation and sharing what we've done, but also hopefully learning more about how we can continue to build more inclusive systems in the future. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for accepting it. Arvinder, on to you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Arvinder, and I'm the Chief Commercial Officer for Wave Money, based in Myanmar and currently based in Yangon. I lead the sales, marketing, digital functions for Wave, and I've been involved with Wave from the launch phase, starting as a founding member. And I have led cross-cultural high-performing teams in Myanmar, Thailand, India, UK, into spreading across various industries like financial, telecommunications, FMCG, beverages, and software sales and support. About WaveMoney, WaveMoney is the leading mobile financial service provider in Myanmar, serving millions of customers monthly across a network of more than 68,000 agents. We are over 4.5 years old right now, and I think we would be part of the few EBITDA positive companies under 2 years of operation, because that's one of the significant achievement for any fintech company as on date. Secondly, Wave has both kind of products, which is more on a distribution over the counter. And secondly is about daily super app kind of products, which is Wave Pay app for digital savvy customers. We serve over 26 million customers in Myanmar, and mainly in the reliable platform for remittances, utility payments, top-ups, digital payments, whether bill collections and all. And very excited to be part of this event. And this is the second year in running I've been here, and very happy to share my thoughts and our learnings with everyone, and also to learn with great minds here. Thank you.
Thank you, Arvinder. Vicente, on to you.
Hi, thank you very much. Nice to be here. My name is Vicente. I'm from Mexico. I have more than 27 years doing microfinance and focus on the base of the pyramid. I founded, I would say, a traditional microfinance company 27 years ago with a lot of branches and credit officers on the field. And 9 years ago, I decided to create a new one that the name is Cubo Financiero. We are a challenger bank now. It's a regulated company by the Mexican government. We are allowed to keep savings, term deposits, payments, and we have a large base of small loans for micro business and individuals. And we're quite focused on machine learning models and the use of big data for the process that help us to understand more deeply the risk management for the customers and how to create a little bit more better products. And I came here because we have a big commitment for women development. We have more questions than answers, and we want to learn from you how to improve our processes. Thanks.
Thank you, Vicente. I'm going to stop sharing the screen, and we're going to spotlight our speakers. There we go. That's perfect. Now we can all have a full view. Okay, so Buhle, I'm going to start with you. So Jumo is a full technology stack for building and running financial services. And to date, your partners have, along with your partners, you've served 18 million clients, as you said, and SMEs, and dispersed over $3 billion. So can you tell us the end user split by gender? And what are you doing that enables your partners to do so successfully with women?
Yeah, thanks. I think, in talking about the split of end users, I always think it's important to talk about where we started. Interestingly, like most people who use advanced analytics, so machine learning, AI, etc., really our initial hypothesis was that we should be able, by lending blind to and lowering the barriers to entry, right, to be able to equitably reach both men and women, right? So that's what we did really in our first year of operation. And in 2016, we actually started to look at the data, right, to understand what was the result of that. And needless to say, we were shocked to find that at the time, across all of our markets, only about 1 in 5 of our customers was a woman. We expected that we would be doing a lot better. So we really started a process of trying to understand both, where the friction points were, either in the customer journey, so, in terms of our actual service and product, but also contextually. And as you know, there are a number of issues, right? Some of which are beyond our ambit to solve, like device ownership, the fact that women just make less money. So their ability to generate a digital footprint, because that costs money as well, right, is lower. And we looked into all of these issues and said, well, let's start to address the things that we can address, right? I'm really pleased to say that as we stand, we're nearing 40% at a global level. And the reason we're particularly proud of this number is that that includes Pakistan, where the numbers are actually really low and in the single digits. And it's quite difficult for us to make real headway there because a lot of the issues are actually cultural and there isn't too much that we can do around the design of the product to do that. So it's a number that we're extremely, extremely proud of. What did we do to achieve this? Some things we did ourselves and some things we did in partnership with our mobile payment operator partners. I'll start with the things that we did in partnership. So we learned that, one of the things that was apparent was the proximity of mobile agents to customers, and a lot of our women were located in rural areas. So clearly this was something which sat with the mobile operator partners to resolve. The other issue was gender of mobile money agents. We found that in countries like Uganda, where this was high, our ability to reach women was significantly higher, and they felt more comfortable asking questions and that type of thing. So those were really some of the contextual things that we resolved. The biggest wins, though, did come from the technology design and also our approach to scoring. So our data science teams worked extremely hard to build what we call thin file strategies. So really being able to work with thin data, which is where we realized we would find women. So often they were just invisible or less visible to us, not necessarily less creditworthy. We did a number of tests as far as that was concerned. And we found, not particularly surprisingly, that many of these women were in fact creditworthy, but their usage of mobile money systems was less active and advanced. And once they had the opportunity to engage, their performance was really high. Other changes that we made were in relation to the product design. So we did a lot of both qualitative and quantitative work. So qualitative work was really understanding what was happening when we would see USSD drop-offs, for instance. What is it that was causing, predominantly women to drop off on certain screens? Some of this had to do with, the language that we were using, which we had to change, because you can imagine if you're already doing something which is less familiar to you or that is new to you, and the language is intimidating, you might drop off in that journey. So those are things we needed to resolve. Other things that we also needed to resolve were around pricing, the way in which we presented that pricing. Again, if you're new to credit, how do we do this in a way that is really, really simple so that you understand that? But also, Carol, more practically, understanding that there is more price sensitivity for women, right? Because again, they're earning less money. And so a lot of work that we did in terms of improving our overall performance and driving price down effectively started allowing us to be able to reach more women. I see actually that on the call, we have quite a few of my customer team on here, and they've also done some fantastic work in terms of the customer engagement. We realized there were some really strange things like, contacts. Women would be more likely to call the contact center to tell us they were going to pay late, something which was not a requirement, and there wasn't, something we were going to act on. And, really starting to think about how can we improve engagement in a way that makes women feel far more comfortable with our product. So those are the things that we've done. I think still a lot more to do. And we have a lot of work in progress around product design on engagement that we will hopefully roll out in the near future. But that's been our journey so far.
Thank you for that. And I think it's very clear that both with your engagement with your partners and with the efforts that you've done yourself, you have really tackled key requirements and addressed key behaviors that we see that women do have, and that is absolutely wonderful. What KPIs do you track by gender at Jumo, and what are they telling you about the business case of serving women?
Yeah, so it's interesting because for us, it's not like we didn't start with, we would like to get to X amount of women, because the fundamental thesis of our business, making the invisible people visible and giving them access, effectively meant right from the beginning that not serving one half of the world was not really on the cards for us, right? And so really what we've been doing over time is more working to understand, what can we do to shift the number to be more representative of the half and half that we see in the world. So for us, what's really kind of been more important has been disaggregating data on how customers are repaying or taking up the product, or how they're progressing through the journey, and then really taking a systems approach and going, who's getting left behind and why, and what's the next change that we can make, whether that's in the customer value proposition, or it's something to do with how we're scoring, and that's really been our approach. It's kind of just going, how do we make sure that people are not left behind? And typically we find that the people who are left behind are women, micro entrepreneurs, agripreneurs. And so we just really deep dive all of that and go, what needs to change? Is it something in the channel, the product, the cost structure, the scorecard? And it's an iterative process for us.
Thank you. And with the data that you do track, so what, the ones that you said you do you see any underlying, common, business case, any information that can kind of build that business case for women within the data that you do track?
Yeah, so I mean, like I said, one of the things that's been quite interesting for us is that, the three segments I spoke about, micro entrepreneurs, women and agripreneurs, when you actually look at it, women over-index in agri and micro, right? And so when we talk with our partners or even talk with regulators around driving financial inclusion and economic development strategies, that's exactly where they want to be, right? And so interestingly, what it's meant, if you think about a business case, is it's allowed us to be able to partner with, all of these large operators, because we've built a platform that is able to reach the people that, our partners want to reach, that, governments are incentivizing people to reach. So it's been fantastic. It hasn't just been about social good, right? But then I think also, the other thing is that these women are credit worthy. Right. So the performance is really good. And certainly even in instances where initially you might think we're seeing low adoption or the repayment isn't what we want it to be, usually when you go in, you find that there's some type of design flaw. And once you fix that, then your performance is actually really good. And I think a case in point is the example that I gave, where we realized that women are more likely to call to say that they're going to be delayed, displaying a real willingness to pay, right? Which, when you're in the credit business, is just absolutely fantastic. And the question then becomes, how do you capture and use that data? Right, which has been kind of the next step for us is because those customers should be treated differently when it comes to your dynamic loan offers and so on. So I would say there's definitely a business case there, both as a financial technology company. If you want to scale, you cannot scale if you're leaving behind half of the world, but also because as a segment, women are participating in parts of the economy which are critical for sustainable development, right? So we know that these small and micro enterprises are essential for economic development. We know that food security is critical. And certainly in sub-Saharan Africa, the work that women are doing in these areas, while also caregiving and taking care of the next generation. So the business case almost at a country level is also quite compelling. So really at every level, financial performance, from a business model perspective, and I would say from a country perspective as well.
Thank you. And I think it's great that, with every new concept or new behavior you see or you understand, you actually go back to your product and service to reiterate and review what it is you can do, rather than either just let go a certain segment or just not serve them the way it needs to. And I love that you go back to your own changes that you can adopt. Just one last quick question before I move to my next speaker. One requirement for women to deal with a financial institution, and I think it's a critical one, is trust. So how has Jumo really answered that need?
Yeah, you're right. Trust is a really, really big one. So I think there are a number of different aspects when it comes to trust, right? So the first thing for us as a technology platform is around reliability. You cannot have failures in the journey or a lack of availability. Nothing breaks trust like that, right? So I think that's important. The other thing, as I mentioned, is that we've seen that women like to have more engagement. So we've done a lot of work in terms of our information channels, support in contact centers. And something that we've realized really makes a difference, with the female segment is when you have a breakout, like for instance, let's say a customer overpays a loan and they call the contact center and they find out that we already know and are resolving that. That type of thing really, really builds trust. And then I would also say another thing when it comes to communication is adapting your communication in a way that makes sense for women. So let me give an example just to make that a little bit clearer. So, in the early days, our mobile operator partners would kind of say, great, we might do advertising. It's just a poster. You can now get such and such a loan. And what we actually learned was that for women, especially if the product is new, they actually want to see what's going to happen. So being able to show them the screens and give them a sense of, oh, I will dial star this, that will happen. And then, so being able to anticipate the type of thing that will happen, that builds trust, because as they're going through that journey, they know exactly what's happening and why it's happening, right? And then the last thing that I'll mention is linked to my first point on reliability, because there's reliability from a technology perspective, that it's there 24/7. If I repay, you keep your promise. If you say that if I repay on time and well, my pricing will go down and my offers will go up, that you keep that promise. But there's something else about being there when things are really tough, right? And we saw this through, the initial height of the COVID pandemic. And one of the decisions we made, together with our partners, was that we would continue to make loans to customers through this period. But more than that, as some of our markets were going into soft and hard lockdown, that we would do things like waiving penalty fees and so on. And our customer team at Jumo were actually running surveys continuously to a SMS survey, so free to the customer, so that we could see how our customers were experiencing this. And it was incredible to see just how grateful they were for the continuity of the service, right? But also for, things like the waiving of penalties and so on. And I think that reliability is really critical. And we're seeing, the impact of that just in terms of customer retention, customer loyalty, and so on. And the reason I mentioned it in the context of gender is that we also saw, as we were doing, because it was a longitudinal survey over time, how our female customers were disproportionately impacted through the pandemic, right? So I think, I'm sure someone on the customer team will correct me if I'm getting this number wrong, but it was kind of in the under $8 a day segment. In countries like Zambia, we saw like a lot of women's income either completely disappearing or, drastically dropping. And so, the continuity of the service in that context became even more important. And so I think, for providers, when it comes to trust, yes, think about it day to day, but also think about it, when you have these kind of really adverse shock events, which, can be, the pandemic is probably like, worst case, but we've had other things, for instance, when there's strikes or, election disturbance and all of that. And all of those times, our response is always this, right? Is we stick with the customers because they've stuck with us as well. And for women particularly, I do think this is important and it builds trust.
Thank you. Thank you, Buhle. Arvinder, so you're in Myanmar and looking at the representation of women agents and customers that you have at Wave Money. So what do you think that, what are the performance metrics actually that you do measure, such as, percentage of uptake, usage, enrollment, et cetera, by gender? And what do they say about the business case for serving women?
Yeah, thanks, Carl. And it was fascinating to hear Bole's some particular things, because the contact center has been where, before I started, where I have invested heavily, and I've been answerable to stakeholders about a contact center. And what rightly Bole said, that if you take a lead into certain things where you can build up trust on initial phases, and which can build up, like a woman are particularly very curious and interested in the facts more than a man. And the contact center creates that kind of direct touch. And, thanks, Bole, I'll always remember this in my all the stakeholder meetings now. I can give you an example also, that I'm not the only one who is talking about this. And coming back to this, I'll just share the background of Myanmar. I would say there are two things. One, we practically designed, like, because of the Myanmar in 2016, it came out of one political stream to another, and which we have again back in 5 months back. So we are again back to where we started in 2014, but it suddenly went into a data drive. We could never see USSD in Myanmar. So that was a design which gave us a direct access to an app. 85% of the people have mobile phone. 87% of the female have smartphones. So these were the features which we got by design, which was helpful for us. Similarly, there were certain things which were, as Myanmar is, for example, the women lead the household. They take all the necessary decisions in very critical financial decisions, which was never a case when I was dealing whether in Indian subcontinent, which we always used to face a challenge in. Well, I just raised about the Pakistan case scenario also. So when we went on our strive towards KPIs to be set up, because of our experience in dealing with distribution, we were always very clear that distribution will play a very key role in rolling out. And as already, so I will always take some examples of Bole because she has already covered those, but that was very critical that the woman takes care of the distribution, whether it is our distributors, whether it is our agents, because if they are there in the market, the customers will feel very safe, trustworthy, and spend time for the first time users for the trial, which was very critical. Similarly, when we looked at our Facebook, because Facebook was one thing which was being taken as a very hot product by the population here. So you cannot have 2 times food, but you will definitely have a Facebook and a smartphone. That's how the population is. So 21 million Facebook users in the country, and 40% of that women followers were there for Wave, which gave us very clear indications that we have to tap them if we have to make successful. And that's why what we did was we kept 2 critical parameters for agents and for the customers. And for agents, we track 5 key performance indicators, just to share with you, which helped us. And we tried to maintain that. The 80% of the shops are managed by women. And it can be both cases. It could be the shops are owned by the woman, or second is and that's one of the important KPI for any offline commissions we give to agents is the 85 to 90% of the shop workers have to be women. Then only they qualify for a particular incentive, which constitutes almost 20 to 35% of their monthly income. So this was one of the key performance indicator we gave to shops, which helped in the starting. Similarly, what we saw that the liquidity at the female agent for us, because any transaction, whether it is over the counter or it's a digital transaction, unless the agent has a liquidity in the wallet, the female agents carry almost 50% more, which was one more parameter for me to convince the stakeholder that why we need to pay more to a female agent. Thirdly, when we saw the earnings and the transactions, we could see that there was a 3x over the male or anything which was less than 80% female-oriented shops. The earning was 3x lesser. Similarly, when we look at the time spent, which was a very critical factor when we look at, we saw that the customer spent 10 minutes more on an average on a shop where there was a female lead or a female staff present on the shop. What it helped the shop was they could do multiple transactions instead of just one transaction for which the customer has come. So this was more on the agent side. So all our commissions, all our distribution matrices, all our cluster strategies were linked toward this very important parameters. Similarly, on the performance parameters, which I'm sure anywhere in the world with the super app concepts, they all follow the same, and we did not do any innovation in that. We just proudly copied that. And this is again because everywhere you go, you have to look into what is the cost of installs and those kind of matrices. I will not go into that because that's universal on a Google. But what I will talk about, our learning was that the registration download on the digital front was double in women, which meant the women were more serious customers. They will not just download an app and just keep it for registration, or they will just download and don't do registration and then the activation. The funnel was double of what men were doing. Secondly, we are still struggling to increase our women customers. We are at 28% right now. But if you look at the transaction value for them, they do 45% of the transaction value on a monthly basis. So on our digital monthly active users, 45% of transactions are done by 28% of women, which shows like even if we achieve 5% more penetration in the women segment, my revenue would be jumped by 11 to 12% very easily. And that's where our target was, and we were going great guns till February. After February, the political things have moved on, so we are back to square one, and we are again trying back again. There was one important thing which we purposely did after we saw our transaction volume. We created woman-specific use cases. So what happens is in any digital arena, I think we all know that there has to be an anchor use case. So we looked at our anchor use case in Myanmar because we tried to copy all the big giants from Southeast Asia, but every country is unique. So what we found out that, for example, P2P, which is a very old use case among almost all financial operators, but for us, it became an instant success because the households were actually taken care by mid-40 and mid-50 women in the household. So when the P2P came to them, whether it was over the counter or whether it was a P2P through an app, it became like kind of our anchor use case. Like in a good months, I would say good months, anything before February, we used to do a monthly close to 57 to 58 million P2Ps a month. And that was like, and that was one of the reasons we became EBITDA positive within 2 years. And so we created a lot of these anchor use cases, and then we kept the metrics against that. So for example, a P2P, it gives me almost 30% profit compared to any other use case. So I think when you look at any digital companies, the biggest revenue case which comes is through lendings or through maybe in today's case would be a shopping e-commerce kind of setups. But for us, the P2P still carries the biggest use case, considering women and the high returns on that. So these were some of the key matrices on both sides, on digital, on customers, and on the agents, which we are thriving and which we are constantly evolving on.
Thank you, Arvinder. And we've heard, at least before February, on more than one occasion that Wave Money has the intention to increase its women's segment. How do you intend to grow, when all things are better, your women's segment? And are you looking at designing tailored products or services, or what exactly is it?
Yeah, so I think early on, based on our success and failures with both OTC and digital market, we kept a very clear segments. Our strategies are completely now based on segments. So all our agile way of working has moved, that the teams work on two different things. One is a normal product. So we don't have anything called male product, but we have a normal products, and then we have a female products. Because under female, we have different segments. Because what we have seen on a digital journey, there are more urban female between 20 to 35, which concentrates more on products which are whether e-commerce or lending or any kind of saving products, which they are more interested in. And they also have access to almost, I think, 70% more access to banks and other financial instruments, which is not the case with rural. And in the rural segments, like we concentrated more on very traditional products, which are P2P, top-ups, bill collects and all. Because even, and I'm sure Visit will share in terms of MFIs and other sectors, women do play an important role here, considering that they give the highest returns to banks and MFIs in terms of loans and SME loans and all. So the entire product experience was based on that. So similarly, when we looked at the acquisition, we decided that we will not go a very normal mode of going digital and distribution. We will also put in more complexity to our acquisition teams. And almost 3 years back, because there were only few people in acquisition, and we could do that at that time, so that it does not wait for when you become too big and then moving an elephant becomes much tougher. So what we did was we started a very simple trust and confidence for a first trial for women. So they were the women brand models and women led BTLs and ATL events, which focus on them, so that more and more of them are participating in that. Similarly, referrals were always given as more incentives. We spent quite a few incentives in the starting for a woman referring a woman customer, and we ensured that we take over the 3 months of the journey after acquisition for them. And there were different stages we did. Thirdly, what we did was we also ensured that all our technical solutions which we were leveraging, whether it was like the tools like Google's, or we use the tools like Mix Panels and App Flyers, or we use the notification tools, we ensured that everything was linked to these products. So what happens, just a simple example, we track in a very direct way, how does my registration happens? And what is the notification which goes to the acquisition customers? So when you look at that track record, you find that my cost per install was almost 50% lower when it was related to a female customer. Similarly, my retention cost of incentives was almost 70% lower, because I don't have to give them incentives. as Bole already was speaking, they are more proactive in asking about what next, or if I am using a airtime top up, what should I do in bill collect so that I get a better deal. So we don't have to give deals to them, but it was more of they will come to us. So all these things, we ensured that all our tools which we use for digital were linked to them. And similarly, we also did some of the other important things which were connecting to rural market for first trials. We ensured that we do what we call is point of partnerships or power of partnerships. So we ensured we do a disbursements for all the different NGOs which are government and non-government, and we do on a yearly basis close to 7 million disbursements, and it covers almost close to 2 million women under various schemes by NGOs, and this is done free of cost. But this gives in return to us as a customer, for which I don't spend any acquisition cost. So, we do various things, but these are few which I could share right now.
Thank you, Arvinder. Thank you very much for sharing all of these. It's been amazing. And from Myanmar, I want to move to Mexico with Vicente. Vicente, so I mean, you have extensive experience with MFIs, and so you know very well some of the key challenges that women do have in terms of informality, the lack of collateral, documentation, credit history. So how have you solved for these specific limitations that women face in particular when accessing finance?
Thanks a lot. Let's think we have two products, savings and loans. We provide directly the loans. In average, we started our loan with $2,500, but in average we have $1,500. So the amount is larger than the most of the traditional microfinance in Mexico. First of all, that we are trying to understand is, let's imagine we don't talk with the customer. So they see the screen in a mobile, so we are mute. So the only way to communicate with them is the colors, the fonts, the text that we use on the screen of the mobile, because 90% of the applications came from mobile. So the first is how does women use the mobile? And one thing that we found is a Facebook way. So they take the mobile, they touch the screen, and immediately they began to move the finger like this from the top to the bottom of the loan application, for example. And in Mexico, to apply for a loan, we have a lot of regulations, so we need to make a lot of questions for that process. So one small thing that we found was that the women drop off very fast because they take the phone, they began to move the finger, and they saw, no, I need to fulfill maybe 20, 25, 30 different kinds of information. So one thing that we do was we need to split that. So men go directly to the answers, women began to analyze the information. Yeah. So we split the screens. So in theory, it was more smarter to have a big screen with all the questions in one. So we split it. So and with that, we increase the number of applications. So that was a small thing. But then we have the language that we use. Bully mentioned that some minutes ago. Regulation says that we need to use special words. And we go with the regulator and say, so this is a legal wording. This is not common for the people. We need to translate that for the people. And they don't want it. So we take the risk. And what we do is we put the word that we wanted, and then we put the legal definition of the word. Yeah. And with that, we are trying to accomplish with the regulation and the mindset of the people. Now we are working very hard with the government in order to let's change the words that we use with the different segments of the people. Mexico is very large, and even in the regions, the people use different words to understand. And because we are mute, because we don't talk with the people, we need to change that in order to make connection with them. Then there is a big problem, I think in all the countries, women has, in average, lower education, lower income, is more informal. So the algorithms for the risk models, when you take all the population, because we cannot select women and men because there is a discrimination. So the algorithms takes all the information without knowing if there are women or men. So, but the algorithms inside them, they begin to discriminate because the education, the income, so now we are thinking how to make some tricks on that. Okay, we cannot use gender information for that, but in the first algorithm. But what if we use some information in order to improve the rates of approval? So now we are testing that in order, we were taking some regulatory risks on that. But if we don't do that, the algorithms always will discriminate or reject the different segments. Even happened that with man. In the saving size, it's quite interesting because that we found is that women save more thinking on the future and with purposes. So I saw when I was child with my mom, she takes envelopes and put money, and she said, "This is for the electricity, and this is for the food, and this is for blah blah." So she used different small envelopes to manage her money, and today it's happening the same. So that we are trying to do is that our wallet helps the people to make that small fractions of the money. So we create a product that is saving goals. It's very easy. You choose the name, you choose the image, you choose the amount of money that you want to have in the future. That is quite easy, that 60% of that savers are women. And the most of the women use that small product. So they want to save for specific purposes, and the people who use that product, or the women that use the product, they save every month more money than the people that they don't have that kind of products. And so our thought is that with a small changes of the information, it's not color, it's not. They began to use better the product and it's more deeply. The other thing that now we are facing is that when we are making a lot of research around women, and they say, I don't want a special product for me. Don't give me a women finance product. I want the same product as the other people. But I need a family product. So I need a product that to improve the quality of life of my family. I need, in Mexico, the most of the financial decisions are taken in couple. So for example, now they are asking us, I need to show to my husband how much interest I'm going to pay for the loan. I need to show for my the oldest of my sons that he helped me to understand if I'm going to receive or not the interest. So they need information to take decisions with both helping with other people. So now the point is, how can we use that mental process to improve the application in order that the family could take decisions around their finance? And maybe that has legal issues with the banking secrets. Yeah. So we're managing that kind of process. The other thing is the funnel. So we made a lot of analysis of the data, and there are quite difference in the funnel in the products, especially in the lending size. So the drop-off of women began very fast at the beginning of the funnel, but also at the end, and that's the part when you need to sign the agreements. Yeah. So the signing of the agreements are very difficult because it's a legal process, even if that is made on a mobile, but at the end, the agreement has maybe 10, 12, or 15 pages with thousands of words, with hundreds of legal clauses that the government pushes that the people knows. And the people became afraid of that. Why I need to sign a lot of paper? When the people are in the traditional microfinance in a branch, at the end, the credit officer, they show them the last page of the agreement and only say, put your finger here. Make the people doesn't read the agreement. They have the same process, but in a digital process, we need to show before all the agreements. Yeah? In theory, in a traditional branch, you need to do the same, but the people make tricks on that. Yeah, but we cannot do that in a digital way. So we need to find different ways to help the people to have trust on the process. The other challenge is, really, are you going to send me money because I'm living 2,000 kilometers from your office? Are you going to send me the money to me that because you don't have a branch in this small city? Because we have only one branch and we are working in more than in almost 1,000 villages. So the first 100 customers of the village, of the city, are quite important because they began to make a word of mouth on the process. That is a real process, it's a real product that we have. So at the end, that we need to find is the best microfinance experience that we've had in the past with the traditional process and with the best digital process that we can learn from an institution like yours. Because so trust is the name of the process. Mute is a reality. We don't talk with the people. They only read, they only see on a small screen. And we need to figure that. Another big tool is and challenge is the size of the app. So the engine, so when you began to develop the apps and the size is it begins to grow and to grow and to grow, and they use a lot of megas. And the most of people, they have smartphones, but they have a lot of limitations with with the data. So you can't do that. So we need to make smart apps with very low use of memory and the very low use of the data. And because we are competing with Facebook, with Instagram, with WhatsApp that also use the data. And the people wants to chat with their friends and their relatives. They don't want to chat with the financial institution. They want to receive the money and that's it. So that's quite important on the process.
Yes, very true, very true. I did ask my other speakers, so I want to ask you as well about some of the KPIs. Are you tracking any of the KPIs or the metrics that you assess your performance by gender? And if so, is your market research helping you understand which ones you want to look at by gender or not?
Yes, we track by gender, and then we split with age and other social demographics, and there are the big difference. Yeah, so it's important to track that by gender, but also it's important to track them. So then combine the information. So because the process is almost the same at the end, but that we are quite. If you fix it for women, you fix it for men. So
very true.
Yeah, so it's quite important to have the approach to fix for women. That is happening in Mexico. I don't know in other countries. Is that? But when we said we are fixing for you, women, they don't like it. They don't like it. So they feel that we are discriminating. Yeah. So, and we are not talking. This is a pink app, but they don't like that we are so explicit on that process. And we made a lot of mistakes with that approach. So we use for internal process purpose the metrics, but when we go out with the people, they need to feel that they have the same opportunities as men or better. And the gender language is now a problem for us. That wasn't maybe 10 years ago, but now it's more a sign of equality. So we're improving that.
Perfect. Amazing. So it's open now, the Q&A. So anybody who has questions to ask any of our speakers, please feel free to add. I'd like to ask Inez's question to all of you, actually, because I think it's spot on. What's your most important piece of advice for fintechs to be successful in the women's market? So I'll start with Vicente, since we're with you. So quick 1-minute answer so that we get everyone's opinions in.
First of all, we think it's a commitment from the board, the CEO, and your C-level. If you don't have that commitment, it doesn't work. Then you need to have some KPIs that help you to understand what is happening and what are the main difference. And the other one is we need to go to the field. We need to spend a lot of time talking with the segments, with women, also with men, with children, to understand the financial needs, the psychological process that they use to create trust, and you need to spend money and spend time. At the end, the time is more, and you need to spend money to do that. And the last one is you need to have a culture a culture of innovations. For us, means to have mistakes. So we have a lot. We experiment a lot. We made A, B, C, D, E testing. It's not only A/B testing. It's a lot of experiments. So we know that if we want to have a good, we have 9 mistakes for one good decision, and we have a budget for mistakes in the risk models, in the marketing process. But you cannot expect to have 90% of good decisions. You need to have 90% of mistakes to have one decision that will help you 10 times or 100 times on your process.
Exactly. I think that's beautiful. Thank you. And that's the spirit. And this is why, this is what fintechs need to teach the rest of the world as well, I think. Bouhle, on to you. So what's your piece of advice for fintechs?
So I think the advice that I would give, is firstly intentionality, right? So it does need to be something that you're actively targeting as an outcome to include women, to ensure, in fact, not just to include them, but also to ensure that the products that you're giving them are relevant choices and are empowering and, delivering real financial value. So to set that very clearly as an intention and obviously measure it as you're going about your business. And the last thing that I would say is just picking up on the point around, go to the coalface, doing your research. I think, when it comes to women, often it's not that they're not transacting financially, right? They're just using, the incumbent technology that you're up against is often analog. So whether that's a pen and a paper or a money box, etc. And I think when we design, we need to, yes, design for the lives that our customers are living, but also understand those choices that they're currently using and make sure that whatever we're designing is fundamentally better, right? So, if we're launching a savings product, is it really a better store of value than whatever they're currently using, right? And really making sure that whether it's about transparency or cost and all of these things, that we are doing better. Because I do think sometimes the mistake that we make is thinking that just because it's utilizing technology or it's digital, it's already better. But women are really discerning consumers, and they need to be often because they have limited resources. So if we really want to drive adoption, critical to not only be intentional, but also have a thorough understanding of the incumbent tools that they're using and do better. Right. Yeah.
Beautiful. Very spot on. Arvinder, quickly, your take on that?
I think being a commercial guy, my view is it has to be sustainable. If it is not sustainable, all the stakeholders, it's very easy to get into a kind of more discussion mode. So that's why if you need to have an infrastructure, like we mentioned about call centers, we mentioned about the distribution, woman-friendly distributions and all those, which all cost money. And secondly is about the need. I would say, the need defines what kind of human-centered designs you plan, what kind of product, and product, I mean real product. It cannot be just for the sake of talking, like we say that we have designed a product which is a subset of original product. Looking at the data, looking at the country, looking at the geography, what is the need of a customer in terms of various women segments, and that product needs to give a ROI back. That's the only way I feel this would be a sustainable product out with the real thing in the market.
Okay, perfect. And I think my advice would be for people to actually follow all three of your advices, because I think each one complements the other, and I think it's the sum of it all that would make it perfect. Very quickly, two very 30-second answers for these two questions. So Juan is asking, what type of trainings do you need for both staff and clients to improve the KPIs, especially when it comes to productivity with women? So 30-second answers. Vicente, we start with you.
I'm not sure it's training. It's focus that we are asking to our digital, our machine learning process and our employees is focus on women, and let's measure them the metrics and think around the problems.
Thank you. Buhle?
Yeah, so I think for staff, it's really around empowering them to be able to act appropriately, right, in line with your intention. So for us at Jumo, we set up customer operating principles which guide people, whether they're in data science or in the customer team, and those help them to optimize, right, for the outcomes. And then when it comes to, training clients or customer education, my view is always try and embed it into the journey. So a lot of the things into the journey, into the product design, because most of the time customers don't want to be educated, right? They just want their products to work. And for us, we've tried to design products that provide a kind of scaffolding and educate the customer as they're going through the journey, embed your terms and conditions along the way so they understand it. And I think that can be really, really powerful.
Thank you. And I want to just make one quick statement on Margaret's comment, where she says women in Kenya told us they don't want to be pinked. And so, and both Vicente and Buhle, you both touched upon marketing and communication as being key. I wanted to take Arvinder's opinion on this one. So what kind of marketing and communication efforts would you need to make sure that you are friendly, women friendly, but also not seen as maybe, like Vicente was putting, maybe discriminatory from women themselves?
No, completely. I think on both the aspects, I think the biggest thing is you need to understand your customer, as I was saying. So focus group kind of things help you decide what your ATL should be, because unless you are very clear which is the segment you are going, so that again, it comes back to the simple basic thing, real product and real needs of a customer. And focus groups studies, in my experience in various countries, has been very helpful, so that you can align your ATL, sorry, I should not use jargons, any advertisements or any kind of market-driven media should be driven by focus groups before you invest any kind of money.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you to my wonderful speakers for your time and your for sharing so candidly, all the ins and the outs of the challenges and the beautiful journey of working with women and targeting women. With that, we end our panel discussion. Thank you all for being with us, and I hope you found the session rewarding and insightful. Our next Fintech Friday session is in August, and it will tackle scaling up through partnerships, and we will be sending you the details soon. For all those who are wondering, the session has been recorded and will be posted on our YouTube channel tonight or tomorrow, the latest. Thank you all. Keep checking your emails for updates and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all.
Thanks.
Thanks.